Hi, welcome back to Flight Simulator 2020. So where was I going with this? So my plan, let me just give you a quick overview of the plan, right? So the plan I have is that I would like to do a initially anyway a flight around the entirety of the UK. Obviously not covering every single inch of the UK because that would be quite difficult, but I figured I'd go round the coast, maybe nip inland to see a few landmarks, stuff like that, anything of interest that in actual fact I'm quite curious to see if anybody watching this wants me to nip by and have a look at something while I'm flying through. So I'm not really sure what this car was doing, by the way, so I just decided to steer around him in the best in the hope that the wings didn't hit him, really. So, and you join me, by the way, at runway I'm just about to join runway 26 at Exeter Airport, EGTE in the UK, Echo Golf Tango Echo, for reasons that I will explain in a moment. So my plan overall was to do a flight around the coastline of the UK, as I mentioned. I want to do some, if not all of it, in live streams if at all possible, but you also might get a few curated videos like this depending on how time and whatnot works out. Now the reason I haven't started, this isn't the start of that tour, by the way, I should point out. The reason I haven't started that tour yet is that Microsoft are about to drop, I was waiting for a van to get out of the way there before I sort of edge forward and get my clearance.
Exeter Tower, Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo at runway 26 ready for takeoff, straight out departure.
Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo cleared for takeoff, runway 26 straight out departure.
Check to see if there's anything coming. I'm flying in the live environment, by the way, during all of this, so if I'm checking for aircraft, it's because I'm checking for aircraft. There literally could well be someone about to come in and land. It wouldn't be problematic, I don't think it does crashes and stuff like that, but it would look odd. So, as I was saying, I wanted to do this this tour of the UK. Microsoft are about to drop an update to the terrain and the scenery in the UK, quite a significant update as well, apparently. Something like 50, at least 50 sort of landmarks and things like that, so it's worth waiting for, essentially. Anything that they haven't improved on, and I think, you know, we might be able to get some benefit from an improvement if there's like an add-on or a free modification even that will improve this situation. That's the A30, by the way, the road that I'm staring at there, that runs right past the airport. It's a road that runs the length of Cornwall all the way, and it goes all the way up through Wiltshire and Somerset, all the way to the outskirts of London. I used to drive down that road all the time when I was looking for a house down here. Anyway, so I didn't want to be recording this in the middle of them dropping that update and then sort of, you know, so I thought this would be, I'm still kind of, I'm still doing sort of orientation flights really to kind of find my feet again with Flight Simulator, having been away from it for quite a while. With regards to my reorientation with Flight Sim, by the way, I'm definitely getting there. I think this is the fourth or fifth sort of proper flight that I've done. The previous flights have been quite short, little hops, and just kind of finding my way around aircraft systems and whatnot. And this one is the first significant distance that I've gone. I would describe my flying style with, you can see me fiddling with the autopilot here, I would describe my flying style and my play style with Flight Simulator as very, very hardcore casual. So I don't follow all the real world flight rules or all that kind of thing, because I don't know what they are and I don't really want to learn them, but I'm quite happy to simulate what I can, but also, you know, occasionally I might nip under a bridge stuff like that. So that's basically what you'll see here. But I do try and do as good an approach into an airport as I can, and, you know, whilst still maintaining a degree of fun. So the plan is still to wait for Microsoft to drop their scenery update. I'm probably going to do a return flight after I've finished this one, the details of which I promise I will come to after I've stopped yammering. So I'm probably going to do a return flight as soon as I can, because I really enjoyed this one, by the way, really enjoyed it. So I might up the level of the aircraft as well that I'm flying. I'm tempted to try one of the slightly bigger ones. Again, a lot of this isn't new to me. It's just that I haven't played Flight Simulator in a very long time because of work and Buur Pit and things like that. So I'm going to wait for Microsoft to drop their content update before hello air traffic control.
Frequency change approved.
Thank you.
Exeter Tower Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo frequency change.
So I'm going to wait for Microsoft to drop their content update, and then I'll start looking at initiating the tour. The plan at the moment with the tour, but that might change. The plan at the moment is to do it in relatively short hops, probably in something like a Cessna 152 or 172. It's very much the plane that you see me flying here. And then we'll see how that progresses. And also, the other thing I wanted to say is certainly when I'm doing these in a live stream, or if I'm not doing them in a live stream, but I happen to be flying, I normally don't keep quiet about this stuff on our Discord, which is linked below. If anybody wants to come along and follow the flight with me, dead casual, by the way, dead casual. If anybody wants to come along and fly along with me, then please do. That would be lovely to see other people doing the flight with me. That would be fantastic. So as I mentioned, this isn't part of the tour. This is just me kind of getting used to strapping an aeroplane to my bum again and making some progress, which is really happening now. Really, I was really pleased with this flight. So where are we going here? As you saw, we started at Exeter in Devon at off of runway 26. We're flying at the moment we're on our way to Plymouth, on the other side of Exeter, which is a large urban area, but also big naval shipyards and things like that there. Huge dockyards and a lot of cruise ships and things, I believe, there, if what I saw out of the window from Flight Simulator is to be believed. And then we fly north up the coast, and then along the south coast of the UK, turn inland at Southampton and head to a military airfield, in actual fact, called Boscombe Down, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then once we had a brief stop at Boscombe Down, and then turn around and head directly south from there, back over Southampton, out into the Solent, and to a very, very quick circuit of the Isle of Wight, and then came in and landed and finished the flight at Bembridge on the Isle of Wight. The reason I chose, you might hear my Discord pinging, by the way, sorry about that. The reason I chose Bembridge to end this flight was that was actually the first time, as a child, in fact, that I ever went up in an aeroplane. I ever flew. When I was a kid, I think I was somewhere between about the ages of sort of 7 and 10. I wasn't very old at all. I was on holiday on the Isle of Wight with my parents, and my dad took me and him up in booked a pleasure flight, basically took me and him up in a small Cessna, did a circuit of the airfield, and then landed again. But it's fairly life-changing, really. As a kid, I liked aeroplanes anyway, but at that point, after that, I really liked aeroplanes. So we're actually just passing over Exeter Airfield again here, because I did a really wide sweep before I engaged the autopilot, so it brought us back over Exeter, and then turned off on the rest of the journey. So now, after this, we're now heading off to Plymouth. So one of the weird things about flying in the open multiplayer game is that some of the traffic you hear is other people, and you're about to hear air traffic control call me out to another aircraft to warn them that I'm there. That's me. I'm fairly certain this is another player responding to that call out. I did have a little scope around to see if I could see them, but I couldn't. At one point I did have you can turn on all the labels so that you can see where other players are. But the time of day that I was flying, it was really, really busy, and the sky ended up looking really cluttered and a bit weird, so I turned it off. The reason I think that was another player was because earlier on air traffic control were calling to them and asking them to make a descent, and they didn't, and so it asked them again and they didn't, and it kept on asking and kept on asking, and eventually they turned around and did the responding call and expedited the descent that they were asked to do. And I don't imagine the AI would do that. I could be wrong, but I don't know for definite that you hear other players' calls to ATC when you're flying like this, but it would make sense that you would.
Copy Beechcraft Charlie Golf Quebec.
So looming in the distance there, you can see the naval port and city of Plymouth in Devon. There's some fairly huge shipyards there, where the Navy, I think they refit a lot of their ships there rather than build them, if you know what I mean. It's that kind of facility, I think. They've got some huge sheds there, which appear fairly regularly on the news down here. So lined up down at the harbour there, you can see some of the cruise ships and things like that I was talking about earlier. They're not they're not brilliantly rendered, certainly at the moment in Flight Simulator, but it's good enough. You know, it's good enough. You kind of get the right impression for what it is. But if they improved it, I'd be fine with that. That said, the level of ground clutter and the level of detail that the sim does produce is honestly amazing. I mean, I've never, I've been playing Flight Simulator for many, many years, and I have never seen anything like this on a publicly, commercially available Flight Simulator that you can play at home. It's absolutely stunning.
Boscombe Tower, Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo 18 miles southeast to land. Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo, Boscombe Tower. Enter left traffic runway 23. Altimeter 29.9 to wind 272 at 8. Enter left traffic runway 23 Cessna Uniform Romeo.
So as you just heard, I've skipped forward some way through the flight at this point. I've covered a large part of the southern part of England, up as far as Southampton and the Isle of Wight. But before going to the Isle of Wight, I've turned north and I'm looking for the Ministry of Defence airfield at Boscombe Down. It used to be one of the largest runways in the UK, but I don't know if it still is. It's where the military in the UK tests its rotary wing fast jet and heavy aircraft. Wikipedia is telling me, and has done since about 1939, I think. As soon as they called out what runway I was on, which was 23, I think he said, you'll notice you'll probably notice that I checked the compass just to see what direction runway 23 will be heading in. I'm completely, as far as this simulator is concerned anyway, I'm completely unfamiliar with the area. So trying to find Boscombe Down is now job number one, and you'll hear me call out to the tower a couple of times for directions. I'm more interested in how far away it is at that point really rather than what direction it is. I know it's directly in front of me, I just can't see it yet. One of the wonderful things about the head tracking that I'm using, and also Flight Sim's awareness of head tracking and how it uses it, is that you'll see me do it later on. You can literally, as soon as I'm looking for something, I'm literally leaning forward and looking over the dashboard. And it sounds ridiculous, but you know, the image, you get closer to your screen, the image gets bigger, it works exactly the way you would expect it to work in a real aircraft. I'm now scoping for the airfield, as you can see. It's incredibly immersive though, without having to sort of strap a VR unit to your head. It's still, for me anyway, it really works really well. I love it. I can't recommend it highly enough. If anybody's interested, I'm using Track IR, which is a hardware solution with an active infrared sensor attached to my head, which looks ridiculous, but it works really, really well, and I'm able to do stuff like this.
Boscombe Tower Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo is unfamiliar with the area. Request directions to the airport.
Cessna Uniform Romeo Airport is 12 o'clock, 6 miles.
Okay, so as you just heard, I'm 6 miles out, so I'm fairly certain that that cluster in front of me is going to be it. I'd be absolutely astonished when I get there if it isn't. Turns out it was. So I'm definitely going in the right direction, and that's definitely it in front of me, almost certainly, positively, I'd imagine. At the point now where I've brought my altitude down a little bit. I'm at about 1500, I think, something at this point, and I'm going to be turning off the autopilot anytime real soon. As I said at the start of all this, I described my flying style as extremely hardcore casual. So there was a little bit of that was my Discord again. Sorry about that. There was a little bit of hoo-ha when I got to the point where I was about ready to do my descent. That was basically because there's a plane talking to air traffic control, and while that's going on, I can't respond to what air traffic control have just asked me to do. That's the autopilot coming off there. I can't respond to what air traffic control have asked me to do. And so I kind of missed my turn into the runway. You'll see that coming up in a second, but I did a manoeuvre which you probably wouldn't do in the real world. But, you know, I don't think Microsoft are going to tell me off, so. So there is a runway to my left-hand side immediately now that I'm running parallel to. That's not the runway that I'm after. I'm after runway 23, which connects to the head of it. You can just see there's the junction point.
Cessna Uniform Romeo cleared to land.
There we go. So here's my clearance.
Wind 272 at 8. Boscombe ground, Diamond Golf.
And immediately that happens, this guy starts talking to the tower, and I can't respond.
Diamond Golf, Yankee Kilo Whiskey Charlie is cleared to Liverpool Airport as filed.
No rush.
Takeoff runway 23 right climb and maintain 8,000 feet.
And there's my runway there, running away from the aircraft. While Mavis is still talking.
Cessna Uniform Romeo
And now I'm getting told off for not responding.
Cleared to land runway 23 Cessna Uniform
That beep you're
Romeo.
hearing is one of the runway markers. So runway, or like an automated beacon to tell you that you're right on top of the runway. Of that I'm acutely aware. Here's the manoeuvre I was talking about that is probably not strictly legal, but throughout all of this I promise you I am in complete control of the aircraft. So it's okay, it's fine, it's fine. I don't know if I'll be able to get away with this or not. It's a really, really long runway, as you can see, but I'm in a really, really slow aircraft, so I was a little bit faster than I would have been comfortable with, but it was. I knew I had it, and it was fine, so I went for it.
Diamond Golf, Yankee Kilo Whiskey, Charlie pushback request accepted.
Maybe this is still going on. I dumped a degree of flaps just above the runway, and down she goes.
Golf, Yankee Kilo Whiskey Charlie ready to taxi IFR. Diamond Golf, Yankee Kilo Whiskey Charlie taxi to and hold
Welcome to
short of
Boscombe.
runway 23 right using taxiway Echo Foxtrot Charlie. Contact tower on 130.75 when ready.
Tiny bit faster than I would have liked, but not a horrible landing by any stretch of the imagination. Still got the requisite number of wings. I'm calling that a win.
Taxiing hold short runway 23 right using taxiway Echo Foxtrot Charlie Diamond Kilo Whiskey Charlie.
One of the things I'm really enjoying about Flight Simulator, and I've never seen this in a previous version of Flight Simulator, and it may sound ridiculous, but the hills and the slopes and the terrain extend to the airports. Up until this point they've always been flat, completely flat if you're at an airport anyway. You'll notice here that there's a slight downward incline to the taxiway. And there are even, you know, it's not uncommon now from airports in 2020 to see the runway moving up or down away from you as you're using it, which is incredible. So on the actual day of the flight, it was about this point that real life interrupted, and I had to go on and get on with family and dinner and Buur Pit stuff, and I returned to the rest of the flight later that evening after everyone had gone to bed, in actual fact. So we'll connect with that in just a second. So here we go. This is the final part, the final leg of the journey. It's now about, in real-time terms, it was about 11 o'clock at night, actually, when I started doing this. So I'm just waddling through my start-up procedure that I've kind of worked out, rather than done with any kind of bookish efficiency, quite frankly. This is the start-up procedure for this aircraft, anyway. We did a startup procedure for a 152, which is hopefully linked on screen right about now, which you might find useful. It was it'll at least serve as a nice primer if you want to feel your way around this cockpit. They're obviously very similar, but with a couple of little changes. Parking brake on, because I always mess that up. And the last bit really is opening the fuel shut-off valve, which is there. And then that little switch you have to throw for about 3 to 5 seconds just to pump a bit of fuel into the engine ready to go, and then you turn it off, throw the ignition, and off we go. And there's Kevin and the electric skateboard on the left there, and his mate Jeff. So again, checking for real world players more than I am AI, to be honest. I've learned that I can pop out that ATC window and it ends up on my right hand screen,
Bravo uniform Romeo, request
which is nice because it gives me a bit of much needed real estate back.
Cessna Golf, Bravo uniform Romeo, taxi to and hold short of runway 23 using taxiway Echo. Contact tower on 130.75 when ready.
You can tell I'm getting a little bit more confident because ordinarily once I got sort of clearance, I find myself up until this point sitting in the cockpit faffing around for a little bit longer and just making sure I've dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's, which in an aircraft is not a bad thing to do. However, this is not an aircraft, this is a simulation. So happy that there's no one coming. I'm kind of looking for a good exit, make sure Kevin and Jeff are reasonably clear, although, do you know what, I don't think it matters if you drive right through them at this point, and then off we go really. The creaking and the groaning that you hear, by the way, I just want to point out, are actually the simulation and not my chair, or not my it's not my back or my knees making a noise or anything like that. That is actually the noise that the rudder pedals make, and the toe brakes in particular, I believe, in this aircraft. fairly certain the real Boscombe Down isn't full of civilian planes. But, you know, we can excuse them that. I do really enjoy these these taxi points. You can, when you start the simulation, you can choose to spawn on the runway with your engine running. But honestly, a huge part of the fun for me is negotiating my way around an airport, particularly one I'm not familiar with. I'm sure there are all sorts of proper ways, and I should be looking at signs and stuff like that. And I reckon I will get to that at some point, I think. But for right now, I'm having the time of my life, honestly. So now we're holding
Boscombe
short.
Tower Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform
Trying to get my
Romeo,
permission
ready
and also
departing
checking
straight
for.
out at runway 23.
There we go, under the wing. Checking for other aircraft
Cessna Golf.
while we wait.
Bravo Uniform Romeo, cleared for takeoff runway 23 straight out, departure approved.
And we're good to go.
Cleared for takeoff runway 23 Cessna Uniform Romeo.
And as you saw on the way in, there was no great need to have a standing start and get the engines up to revs to get the maximum speed out of it as quickly as possible. We've got a colossal runway to use and an aircraft that honestly in a high wind doesn't want to stay on the ground. So I just went rolling. As soon as I knew I was on runway rather than apron, I opened the throttle up and off we went. Here we go. As you'll see, it doesn't need much at all. So as I mentioned at the start of this flight, the thing I really want to do, or the thing I'm really looking forward to be honest, is the scenery and terrain update for the UK, which is due moderately imminently. The point of the next bit I was going to do, the idea was to head out to the Isle of Wight, just off the coast of the UK south coast, and then do a circuit round one end of it. If you're unfamiliar with the UK terrain, there's on one tip of the Isle of Wight, there's some very distinctive rocks and a lighthouse, and also an old, I think sort of World War II era fort. Some fortifications and stuff that were put there, and also they did, I think probably in the 50s and stuff, they did some rocket testing, believe it or not, off of there as well. The area with the distinctive rocks is known as the Needles for reasons that will become apparent if you look at them. I was curious to see if they'd survived the current terrain translation in this version of the simulator. Turns out they hadn't. There isn't really anything terribly interesting to see on that half of the Isle of Wight at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll skip forward now to Southampton so you can get a look at that as we go over, and then I'll bring you back in again for the final part of the flight. So here we are over Southampton. There's dockyards, you can see cruise liners and stuff like that down on the just to the right of me there. Again, I'm not over familiar with this area, so I don't really know how accurate that is. The landmass that you can see the other side of the river estuary. So you've got the river estuary right in front of me, and then beyond that, just on the horizon, that landmass is actually the Isle of Wight, and it's not connected to the UK mainland. It's Wight spelt W-I-G-H-T, which is actually kind of creepy. I'm sure it's fine. So as I said, the plan here was to fly out to the Isle of Wight, fly over its northern edge, which you can see just in front of me. But as it turns out, like I say, the terrain is not yet filled in and isn't awfully interesting, to be brutally honest, at the moment. There's nothing wrong with it intrinsically, but it's just not terribly accurate and not awfully any more interesting than what you're seeing around you at the moment. So I will skip to the point where we're approaching the final landing.
Southampton approach JMB Aviation Foxtrot. Zulu Romeo Whiskey Victor.
So here we are approaching the southeastern edge of the Isle of Wight. This is where this terrain and the accuracy of the information that's being displayed below you really comes into its own. So I know Bembridge is in front of me somewhere, but I couldn't quite make it out yet. So I had a look at Google Maps, zoomed in on Bembridge on Google Maps. I could then see the little inlet that's directly in front of me there, just to the ever so slightly to the left of 12 o'clock, and then could make out where the airport was in relation to that. And as you can see, I've just called for permission to land because I can see the runway. But that was after having looked at Google Maps and going, okay, I can see exactly where I am, and exactly, I was literally looking at the road on Google Maps that is present in the simulation that runs along the side of the airfield, and you'll see that when I come in to land.
Echo Golf Hotel Juliet, traffic Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo 3 miles west, 2,100 feet inbound to land runway 30.
So I'm just doing constant calls out to ATC here, just to, in case there is, on the off chance there is anyone else
Echo
in the
Golf
area.
Hotel Juliet, traffic Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo is on upwind runway 30.
I've got no idea if I'm on my upwind or downwind at this point, but I figured it was polite to at least let people know that I was there, just in case. That building on the left there, I think, he says, checking his notes and Google Map that he's got opened in front of him at the moment, is the National Trust Bembridge Fort. And Downs, yeah, it is. Bembridge Fort and Downs, that is. It looks like a historical military installation.
Echo Golf Hotel Juliet,
The simulator
traffic
appears to have
Cessna
tried to turn it into an
Bravo
enormous block of
Uniform
flats of some
Romeo,
description,
1
because it
mile
doesn't
south,
yet know what it is.
1,300
Which is,
feet
you know, it's good
inbound to
enough.
land runway 30.
You can tell if you're looking, like I said, if you're looking at a map of the real world on Google Maps and you're looking out the window, you can tell where you are. You can tell exactly where you are, in fact. So I mentioned earlier on about how airfields in the simulation now are often on slopes,
Echo Golf Hotel
or
Juliet, traffic Cessna Golf, Bravo Uniform Romeo is on
definitely on final
runway
now.
30 to land.
Are sometimes on slopes, or you know, the you can end up landing uphill and things like that, depending on where you're landing. When I get off the taxiway of the airfield here in particular, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Look at that terrain in front of you. It's absolutely incredible. There's the road I was talking about, complete with traffic. And welcome to Bembridge. I'll post my system specs in the video description, by the way, if you want to have a look. By no stretch of the imagination am I running a beast of a PC. I can't think what they are off the top of my head, but it's, you know, by today's standards, it's a fairly modest build, and the game runs, for my money, absolutely beautifully, considering what it's chucking around, the graphic fidelity of what you're looking at out the window. No complaints whatsoever. I've been really pleased with it, and I honestly didn't think it was going to run this good at all. Here I'm peering over the dashboard again, trying to find where everyone else is. There are other aircraft off to the left. They'll do.
Echo Golf Hotel Juliet traffic Cessna Golf. Bravo Uniform Romeo is clear of the runway.
And this bit of terrain I'm driving on now, this is what I was talking about, is very much downhill. It's a silly little detail, but it really adds to the immersion. I love stuff like that. You know, that there are people standing around and there are vehicles driving about, and it's just amazing. I think those guys are waiting for me. One of them looks very expectant, and I've overshot. So there's now an appalling turn coming. It was very late at night at this point, and I was frankly somewhat tired. Yeah, definitely waiting for me. So there you go, that was Exeter to Boscombe Down to Bembridge on the Isle of Wight. The plan now is to turn around and go back. I don't know whether that'll end up on YouTube or not. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that. And then pretty much I'm waiting for the Microsoft content drop to update the United Kingdom and bring a little bit more resolution and put in some solid sights to see, quite frankly. And then we'll see about going round the coast. That's it. Thank you very much for watching this far. I do appreciate it. Hit like and subscribe if you like the video. Check out everything else we do in the description below, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.